When I saw this post right here, I immediately thought of the quote that KG always says, the one that goes, "They don't want to save the country, they just want to be celebrities." So, in case y'all don't know, a couple weeks ago, and by the way, I'm actually recording this on July 17, 2025, but by the time you'll see this, it'll be a couple of weeks have passed. The ESPYs came on now. The ESPYs, of course, is the honoring of people in sports over the last year, and it's hosted on ESPN. And every year they usually have a person come on as a host. It could be a celebrity, it's a comedian, someone who's in music. They mix and mingle it around as far as who's going to do the hosting. And this year it was comedian Shane Gillis. Now, Shane got on there and he did his opening monologue and everything like that. But there was one part of his monologue that stuck out like a sore thumb, and it attracted the likes of people like this individual named Benny Johnson. Now, I've heard of Benny Johnson before. KG has spoken about him. So if y'all follow KG, you probably heard about him because he's spoken about him more than I have. I think this might have been the first time that I had spoken about Benny Johnson. But Benny Johnson got a hold of a clip in which Shane Gillis was talking about involving Epstein and January 6th. And as you can see right here in the caption, it says comedian Shane Gillis calls January 6th quote unquote stage and makes a Jeffrey Epstein murder joke that has the crowd roaring at the ESPYs. He says, "We control culture now." Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the audio of what Shane Gillis said, and you decide for yourself, was this a dig or was this a acknowledging of quote unquote culture like Benny Johnson says?
Donald Trump wants to stage a UFC fight on the White House lawn. The last time he staged a fight in D.C., Mike Pence almost died. All right. You don't have to do that. It was fine. I didn't write it. Actually, there was supposed to be an Epstein joke here, but as it got deleted. Must have probably deleted itself, right? Probably never existed, actually. Let's move on as a country and ignore that. The New York.
So there, as you heard by the audio right there, Shane Gillis is making fun, like they said, of what happened with January 6th. He says the last time they staged a fight in D.C., Mike Pence almost died. Which, that is, like, when you think about it, this is actually kind of funny, considering it did look just like that, and Mike Pence almost did lose his life, because you remember, they were trying heavily to go after Mike Pence, but I guess because they felt he was a traitor to Trump. And then, of course, he says, I had an Epstein joke in there, but I guess it got deleted. And then he says, as a country, we should move on. And that's being a play on words, because basically Shane Gillis is making fun of MAGA, or a lot of these Trump supporters, on not one, but two major occasions that have occurred one happening under the outgoing administration from Trump's first administration, and then the second one within the first year of his new and second term. And then you got people like Benny Johnson, who comes up here and posts this and thinks that, oh wow, because they're acknowledging us now on a place like the ESPYs that's on actually it aired on ABC, which of course is owned by Disney, just much like ESPN. Now we're on the world stage, or at least the national stage, and now people know who we are. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, Benny, do you not realize that Shane Gillis is making fun of you right now, and not in a good way? They're showing that you and your ilk are some of the biggest embarrassments that this nation has ever seen in quite a long time. And you're going to sit up here and praise this as if it's a badge of honor. Like, I would be so embarrassed. But see, the thing is, you can tell people like this don't get that much attention otherwise, so they'll take whatever kind of acknowledgement that they can get, even if it is an insult, which this definitely was. It was just wrapped up in a joke. And then he said the people were roaring laughing. Were there people laughing? Yes, there were, because the joke actually was kind of funny. but I wouldn't say they were roaring laughing. Now, if you want to see some roaring laughter, look at some old Def Comedy Jam videos. Now, that is some roaring laughing. You want to see people cracking up and jumping up and down and laughing so hard? That's a good place. Shoot, even Comic View is another one. But this was not roaring laughter. He over exaggerated it, and it's crazy because the clip is right there. He posted it, and we would know the difference between roaring laughing and just laughter, and that fell into the category of just laughter. And then he wants to say, or end it off with, we control culture now. What culture are you controlling now just because your name was mentioned? Do you know that comedians have name dropped all types of people all the time, whether celebrities of all types, music, actors, actresses, sports? I mean, of course, you know, there's always going to be political jokes. They talk about real world situations that's even bigger than this. And you think they control the culture? It's just a joke. You don't control anything just because your name or your affiliation was mentioned within a joke on a sports awards ceremony. So I don't know what Benny Johnson's talking about, but goes back to what I just said. When you don't get acknowledgement the way that you feel like you should, even if you don't deserve it, which he doesn't, then you will accept any acknowledgement, even if it is an insult. Now, what I did was I went and found some tweets of some people that was agreeing with Benny Johnson, and they're just as smooth brain as he is, but I'm not surprised. This person right here says, we are winning the culture war. Little by impressive little. No one would have thought this 15 years ago. No one. Here's the thing. No one thinks that 15 years ago, and no one would think of that 15 years from now that you are winning any type of culture war. And see, this person, they go by the name of MAGA Puppy. Again, they really want to be acknowledged as having done something. I'm telling you right now, 50 years from now, MAGA is only going to be a blip on the radar. Ain't nobody going to be thinking about it. You know what? 50 may be too far away. I would say maybe Trump gets out of office in 2028, 5 years. I would say at least 5 years after he gets out, no one's going to remember who MAGA is. So let's say around 2033, no one's going to really care. Like, that's really all it boils down to. So again, another individual who thinks that MAGA is more important than it is, but it's really not. This person right here says comedy is coming back to what it should be, and they put OT instead of IT. This is the easily offended should need to just go away and protect their feelings. Here's the crazy part. If this person right here knew that they were being made fun of in a way that, you know, probably wouldn't garner that much laughter, they probably would be offended as well. But because they didn't get the joke or find out that they were the butt of the joke, that's why they said this. And here you have Gunther Eagleman, someone I've talked about a couple of times in the past. It says the dude is hilarious. You want to know one thing I've noticed about Gunther Eagleman, for those who may or may not be on Twitter, more so for those who aren't, is whenever I come across posts that may be from someone of his ilk or someone that would say something that he would say, every time I scroll down the feed and I see his post, he leaves stuff like this. It's almost like he's parroting them, like he doesn't have any thought of his own. He just goes there and just agrees with it. This is just another one of those agreement posts when he says this dude is hilarious. Again, not thinking for themselves, but hey, it is what it is. Now, while there were posts that, as y'all could see right there, that were agreeing with Benny Johnson, there were other posts from people who actually had some sense that actually was telling Benny, look, he's making fun of you. He's not saying this as an acknowledgement. Like, he's telling you that you are an embarrassment, but it's wrapped up in a joke, and you're so smooth brain that it went right over your head like the cow jumping over the moon. But check this out. This person says, you know, he's making fun of you, right? And the thing is, like I said, is a lot of posts under there that are saying that, especially a lot of early posts when he first posted the video itself, and then it kind of dwindles out. But I'm sure if you go on the quoted post, a lot of people are saying the same thing. This person said, oh my God, if that's how you interpreted what he said, you're dumber than I thought. And that's the thing, he is. And he did interpret it that way, that, oh my God, we got acknowledged, so that means we control the culture. And the crazy part about it is, most of them feel just like that. If they get any type of acknowledgement in a way like this on a stage of any sort, that means that, oh, we're finally being recognized for our efforts, which really isn't an effort at all when you put it into the proper definition of what effort means. They're not trying hard, they're just doing things, a lot of it on impulse. This person wrote right here, says, I thought your issue wasn't about who controlled culture, but that you didn't want anyone to control over culture. Good to know. And then they put up a MAGA, well, a red hat. It says, once you go red, your brain is dead. So it sounds like this Benny Johnson person, or people within MAGA or whoever, said something along the lines of that caption, and now they're going against it. It's a bunch of hypocrites over there. They tend to contradict themselves all the time, but then again, they probably don't know the definition of a hypocrite and contradiction, even though they display what those two words mean all the time. But if you ask them to define it, probably let alone spell it, they couldn't do either one. This person said he's making fun of you, Benny. Pretty straight, direct, and to the point. And this last one that just says, hey, dumb, he's mocking you. So really, you get the point. There were some people under there that had some sense, shout out to them, who understood the assignment and knew exactly what was going on. And it's crazy because the people who are saying that, they don't benefit from telling Benny that, but they want to tell Benny that because of how much of a fool he actually is. And they probably feel like this guy is such a joke. This guy is more of a joke than the joke that was being told by Shane Gillis on that stage. But then again, he was the butt of the joke. People like him are seen as and still seen as an embarrassment. What it all boils down to is this: people like Benny Johnson and those over there just want to be seen so badly that even when they're insulted in a joke, even when they're embarrassed, they will cover that up with a band-aid and say stuff like what he said about controlling the culture when they don't control a damn thing. I don't get it. I'm trying to figure out, what culture are they controlling? I think that's a better question. Benny Johnson, what culture are you controlling now just because a comedian mentioned you in a joke, even though what was said was true, but it was in a tone of you should be embarrassed by your actions over the last couple of weeks, especially the last couple of weeks, over the last few years, but definitely the last couple of weeks. And you think that's good because you got subliminally mentioned? Like, he's got up on that stage and basically said those things and said that, look, these are the embarrassments of society. Like, listen to how they are. Look at how they carry on online. I wouldn't, for one, be embarrassed, but that's just me. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.